In the mid-90s, the so-called West Coast versus East Coast beef was in full effect, and Dogg Pound and Snoop Dogg released a song called New York, New York from the Dogg Pound's debut studio album, Dog Food, released in September 1995. The song was the lead single from the album, and according to Corrupt, it was a dedication to the city that started hip-hop. While they were in Brooklyn filming the video, Biggie was on the radio, venting his frustration at allowing them to film there, and apparently gave out the location, which led to the Dogg Pound's trailer being shot at. This caused the Dogg Pound and Snoop to change up the idea for the video to diss New York City, and led to the infamous kicking over the building scene by Snoop Dogg. In 1996, CNN responded to New York, New York with LALA, which features Tragedy Khadafi and Mobb Deep, and was the second single from their debut studio album, The War Report, which was released in June 1997. Now that that's done, fast forward to 1998. Jay-Z released his third album, Volume 2, Hard Knock Life, which featured the single Money Cash Hoes, and on that song he has the line, "What's the dealins? It's like New York's been soft ever since Snoop came through and crushed the buildings," which of course is a reference to the Dogg Pound song New York, New York. This prompted Prodigy to respond in interviews, including one for The Source, on which he was on the cover of the magazine that month as a solo artist, expressing his dislike for Jay-Z due to his handling of the situation and the line in question. Years later, in his autobiography titled My Infamous Life, the autobiography of Mobb Deep's Prodigy, he states that Jay-Z was dissed by them but didn't respond at all, so he wasn't fond of the line in the song referencing the beef with the Dogg Pound. Before any of this though, there was a subliminal shot allegedly from Jay-Z to Prodigy. On the song Trife Life from Mobb Deep's second album, The Infamous, Prodigy mentions the Marcy Projects on his verse. Then on Jay-Z's second album, In My Lifetime Volume 1, on the song Where I'm From, he starts his verse with, "I'm from where the hammer's rung, news cameras never come, you and your man was from in every verse in your rhyme." According to Prodigy, the only person at that point who had mentioned Marcy Projects in a rhyme was him, so it had to be aimed at him. Also, considering the "you and your man" implying it was two of them, that makes it more likely to be a Mobb Deep reference. Either way, this would all lead up to the 2001 Summer Jam where Jay-Z first performed the song Takeover, or at least the first two verses, which was a diss to Prodigy. Takeover is known by many as a Nas diss, which became the main focus once the full version was featured on Jay-Z's sixth album, The Blueprint, which released on September 11th, 2001. On the Summer Jam stage, Jay had a picture of Prodigy as a kid in a Michael Jackson-styled outfit, which was from Prodigy's grandmother's dance studio that he used to be a part of when he was younger. In the first verse of Takeover, Jay sticks to the subliminal shots, such as using the term dunny in reference to Prodigy, which is a part of the dun language that Prodigy and his crew often used. He ended the verse with the lines, "Don't do it to me, dunny, cause I overdo it, so you won't confuse it with just rap music," which would prove to be quite ironic a little bit later, which I'll be mentioning shortly. On the second verse of the track, Jay turns it much more direct, however, and on the Summer Jam stage, he performed it a cappella, and the crowd was in an uproar. He goes on further to diss Prodigy for his height, the dancing, and Mobb Deep's record sales not being as high as his own. He ended the verse with the notorious line, "You guys don't want it with Hove? Ask Nas, he don't want it with Hove," which made the Jay-Z versus Nas beef that was also subliminal up till then public now as well. Then of course verses 3 and 4 were added later on, which went at Nas and Prodigy respectively. This built some anticipation in fans to hear how Mobb Deep, Prodigy in particular, would come back on their next album, especially considering the controversy regarding their previous album, Murder Music, which was heavily bootlegged and wound up with the album being altered before release. In response to this, Mobb Deep came at Jay on their fifth album, Infamy, released in December 2001, specifically on the song Crawlin', and also some shots were taken on the song The Learning, which features friend and frequent collaborator Big Noyd as well as rapper Vita from Murder Inc. On Crawlin', Prodigy goes at Jay-Z on both of his verses with lines referencing the Summer Jam screen picture of Prodigy as well as making mention of Jay-Z allegedly skipping out on rap award shows out of fear of Prodigy and crew. Generally threatening lyrics are also sent to Jay in the third verse, insinuating stealing his watch, among other things. Also, he responds to the 1988 line from Takeover and makes a reference to Hawaiian Sophie, the first single that Jay-Z was on with his then mentor Jaz-O. Overall, another solid diss. On the song The Learning, Prodigy also disses Jay on his verse as well with more subliminals, but a very clear shot at Jay with a reference to the Summer Jam screen incident and the Takeover verses. Apparently, the video for The Learning lacked an appearance from Vita, who was on the chorus because Jay-Z reached out to Irv Gotti to block Vita from being in the video as she was signed to Irv's record label, Murder Inc. This helped Prodigy learn how Jay-Z most likely managed to get his hands on the picture that was used on the Summer Jam screen, as Ashanti, who was also signed to Murder Inc. at the time, apparently had been a member of the dance studio that Prodigy's grandmother owned. Around this time, fellow Queens rapper Cormega released his debut album, The Realness, which includes the track Thun and Kiko, which features Prodigy. On this track, Cormega disses Nas, and Prodigy sends some more subliminal shots allegedly at Jay-Z. Besides these tracks, freestyles were done back and forth regarding the beef as well. One such freestyle was an instance where Jay-Z and his new artists like Beanie Sigel and the like were at a radio station. Beanie spit a subliminal line dissing Mobb Deep, and also rapping was an artist named H Moneybags, which is extremely similar to E Moneybags, a fellow rapper and friend of Prodigy who also knew Jay-Z. This prompted Prodigy to get on the phone with the radio station for them to get Jay-Z on the phone, and then he put E Moneybags on the phone with Jay to ask directly about H Moneybags. Shortly afterwards, Prodigy would call Funkmaster Flex to see if they can come up and do the same thing as Jay and crew did, and was told that they could. Once they arrived at the station, however, they were denied entry, as apparently Flex's boss had told him that they can't do it as it would cause more conflict. Shortly afterwards, E Moneybags would be killed allegedly due to an altercation he had involving Kenneth McGriff, aka Supreme, from the Supreme team. According to Prodigy's autobiography, in October of 2001, he went to Puffy's restaurant Justin's with his crew, and the DJ there made an announcement that Jay-Z and Jermaine Dupri were there as well, which led to Prodigy and crew wanting to confront Jay. They waited outside for Jay to leave, and when the two saw Prodigy and crew, Jermaine Dupri walked off, and Jay walked towards Prodigy with his hand extended to shake. And then Jay told him that there's no beef, it's just music. As I mentioned earlier, this is the exact opposite of what he said on Takeover, which is very ironic. Somewhere around this time, Prodigy again took shots at Jay on the track Mob Niggas by the infamous Mob, which this song apparently has more than one version. One of Prodigy just doing the chorus, and one with him rapping a verse as well. So if you want to hear it, make sure to listen to the right one. He disses Jay specifically with the lines, "I pledge allegiance to my infamous flag. Niggas get tagged and bagged for coming at my familia. This ain't the Roc, nigga. We ain't them faggot ass niggas." The Roc is clearly a reference to Roc-A-Fella Records, Jay-Z's record label at the time. Later on the remix of Young Jeezy's I Put On from his album The Recession, released in September 2008, Jay-Z on his verse again referenced the 2001 Summer Jam situation with the line, "I put Prodigy in his place" on that Summer Jam screen. Jay-Z has been known as someone who tends to take more subliminal shots at people, but in his beef with Prodigy, he did take some pretty direct ones as well. However, he did seem to focus more of his attention on dissing Nas after he dropped Takeover. Perhaps he saw Nas as a better opponent, or maybe, as Prodigy claims, Jay really was scared of Prodigy and his crew. Allegedly, Cormega talked to Jay-Z and warned him about how Prodigy is a live wire and likely to shoot him, and Jay-Z avoided going to certain award shows in order to avoid Prodigy and his crew. Either way, both of these artists went on to continue to release solo albums, collaboration albums, and feature in so much more. Prodigy went solo, released a bunch of albums himself, Jay-Z and his business ventures, you know the deal. And they've had varying degrees of commercial and critical success in their music careers since then. Both go down as greats in hip-hop, especially in NYC. Unfortunately, Prodigy passed due to complications from his sickle cell disease in June 2017 at the age of 42. And according to Jay-Z, a few years before his death, they did speak in a club and everything was good between them. And he stated that he had much respect for Prodigy and has mentioned at some point that Prodigy could have been one of the greatest rappers ever. As I've mentioned, this is a beef that was overlooked due to the beef that was brewing between Nas and Jay-Z for a while. Then also, Nas and Prodigy were beefing as well around that time. It makes for an interesting situation overall. Prodigy on interviews has even stated that he fell back from the beef once Ether came out, as he admits that he felt like he couldn't make a diss track as good as that one. Ether is one of my favorite diss tracks of all time, as well as Nas being one of my favorite rappers along with Prodigy. They're easily some of the greatest artists that came out of the 90s, especially in New York. Like that one, this also started with subliminals in the mid-90s. There's multiple claims to how the beef started, and before I get into the tracks, I'm going to be breaking down the potential reasons why it began. In June 1996, Jay-Z dropped his debut studio album, Reasonable Doubt. On it was a track titled Bring It On. And on this track, alongside Jay-Z, are Jaz-O and Sauce Money. But it was apparently supposed to have Nas and his friend and frequent collaborator, AZ, on the song instead, but they never showed up to record. Also, Nas was allegedly supposed to be on the song Can I Live from the album as well, but once again did not show up to record. Jay-Z not being able to get Nas on the album at all had a Nas line sampled from his song The World Is Yours for the song Dead Presidents 2, also on Reasonable Doubt. Some will say that this is what sparked the beef, Jay-Z feeling slighted or ignored by Nas. Others would have their own opinions on the start of the beef between the two. One example being Carmen Bryan, Nas' ex-fiancée and mother of his first child, Destiny. According to interviews as well as her tell-all book titled It's No Secret From Nas to Jay-Z, From Seduction to Scandal, a hip-hop Helen of Troy tells all, she claims that the beef between the two started because of her relationship she had with Jay-Z, including getting pregnant by him. According to Carmen, she met Jay-Z shortly after Reasonable Doubt released in 1996, and they became romantic roughly a year later. On the flip side, another person very close to the situation claims that they were the start of the beef. That person being Memphis Bleek, who was a younger friend of Jay's and considered to be his protege for a time. Bleek claims that the beef started because he heard that Nas was dissing him on a song, so he dissed Nas back. Personally, I believe it started simply from Nas not showing up to record, and everything else just worsened it. Regardless though, the facts are that it happened. So let's get a bit further into a timeline of the beef, shall we? Since Nas never showed up to record, Jay had sampled his voice instead. This would only be the first time that he would sample Nas, however. The next year, in 1997, Jay released his second album, In My Lifetime Volume 1. And on the track, Rap Game Crack Game, he sampled a Nas line from the song Represent, also from Illmatic. Jay also mentioned Nas on the song Where I'm From with the line, I'm for when niggas pull your cards and argue all day about who's the best MC, Jay, Biggie, or Nas. Now, it's not a diss really, but another example of Jay showing his admiration for Nas and also the competitiveness that he has. At the time of the album release, Biggie had been murdered months prior, so that conversation will be between Jay and Nas now as far as to who was the best. Also, luxury rides were a topic of conversation too at one point, as Jay-Z, in multiple songs on Reasonable Doubt, expressed his fondness of Lexus vehicles and also used them in multiple music videos. Nas then on his second album, It Was Written, released a week after Reasonable Doubt, has a line referencing Lexus as well, which was seen as a shot at Jay-Z. Years later, in an interview with Complex, Nas stated that the line was inspired by Jay, but not a diss towards him. Later on, in August of 1999, Memphis Bleek released his debut studio album, Coming of Age, which featured the song Memphis Bleek Is, which some would say was copying Nas' song Nas Is Like from his third album, I Am, which was released earlier that year. I can see the similarities in the title and the chorus, and along with the fact that they were released not too long after one another on top of the beef brewing between them, it makes sense to come to that conclusion. Also on the album is the track What You Think of That, which features a verse from Jay-Z, and Memphis Bleek on the chorus says, My whole team rocks, we don't speak to cats, I'm a ball till I fall, what you think of that? A line that would be responded to a little later on by Nas. Also on the song, Bleek and Jay throughout their verses have lines that can be considered as subliminal shots at Nas. Around this time, multiple songs from Nas and Jay would have lines referencing themselves as the King of New York. For example, Nas' song We Will Survive from his I Am album, which had a verse dedicated to Biggie, during which he says, It used to be fun making records, just to see your response. But now competition is none since you're gone, and these niggas is wrong using your name in vain. And they claim to be New York's king, it ain't about that. Then on his fourth album, Nostradamus, released later that same year, he responded to Bleek's line from What You Think of That with the lines, You want a ball till you fall, I can help you with that. You want beef, I can let a slug melt in your hat. Bleek then responded on the song My Mind Right. On the first verse, he makes a clear reference to Nas with the lines, Your life's a lie, but here's the truth. You ain't hyped to die, but you hyped to shoot. You let the Henny talk for you, and so on and so forth. Hype here being a double entendre for Hype Williams, who directed multiple music videos of Nas's, as well as directed the film Belly, which was Nas's first film role, and the Hennessy reference is funny as years later, Nas would go on to be a brand ambassador for the drink. In the second verse, Bleek goes on to make a reference to Nas's second album, It Was Written, with the lines, Your lifestyle's written, so who you supposed to be? Play your position. As well as ending the verse with a reference to Biggie, who had beef with Nas at one point as well. Also on his second album, The Understanding, as well as the European version of Jay's Volume 3 album was the song Is That Yo Chick, which is seen by many as a subliminal diss to Nas, as the song features Jay-Z and is all about a woman being unfaithful to her man. This being something that wound up being true considering the affair between Jay-Z and Carmen was likely going on at this time. Nas then responded back to Bleek and the rest of Roc-A-Fella Records with his Stillmatic freestyle, specifically with the line, Rip the freeway, shoot through Memphis with money bags, stop in Philly, order cheesesteaks, and eat beans fast. Aimed at Memphis Bleak and state property artists Beanie Sigel and Freeway. That was followed by multiple lines aimed directly at Jay-Z, such as claiming that Jay is copying him, his rhymes about coke are fake, and his clothing line is whack. He also sends a shot at former friend and collaborator Cormega, who he was beefing with at the time as well. All of this led up to the Hot 97 Summer Jam, where Jay-Z put the Prodigy picture on the screen and performed the first two verses of Takeover, dissing Prodigy, with the last line aimed at Nas. Then in September 2001, Jay-Z released his sixth album, Blueprint, and on it was the completed version of Takeover, aimed at both Prodigy of Mobb Deep and Nas. The third verse, being 32 bars instead of 16 as verses typically go, showed just how much Jay had to say about Nas. I will admit that this is a good diss track, and I like it, but some of the claims that Jay directs at Nas are inaccurate, which in diss tracks happens sometimes as the public doesn't always know or care at the moment what's correct, but in hindsight, we often have a clearer picture. He attacks Nas' rap career by claiming that he was good at first, but has basically fallen off. Nasty Nas, the Esco's trash, had a spark when you started, but now you just garbage. Which is something at the time that was considered by many to be true, as Nas' first two albums were loved by many and considered classics, while his third and fourth albums were considered to be a big fall off in quality and are considered still by many to be the worst in his discography. Some had questioned if he would ever be back to the standard he had set at the start of his career. Since then, Nas' subsequent albums have mostly been considered back to form, especially his most recent ones. Jay goes on to call him a fake thug and claim his rhymes are just things he witnessed but never lived himself, as well as mentioning the situation with sampling Nas' songs. Oh yeah, I sampled your voice, you was using it wrong. You made it a hot line, I made it a hot song. And states that Nas didn't get paid from the sample. MC Search from Third Base did instead. MC Search, in an interview, would state that he only administers Nas' publishing, so he did get paid, but that he doesn't own it. Jay-Z also goes at Nas with the infamous line, "You said you've been in this 10, I've been in it 5. Smarten up, Nas. 4 albums in 10 years, nigga? I can divide." This line is biased in favor of himself, understandably so, but still incorrect since Nas' first song was indeed released in 1991, but his first album didn't drop until 1994, and Jay-Z has been featured on songs since 1986 with his then mentor, Jaz-O, and the group High Potent MCs. If you go by that, then it would be roughly 15 years and not 5. Lastly, he ended the verse off with what is probably the most truthful and hardest blow of the verse to Nas personally, hinting at the affair with Carmen Bryan, who, as I said earlier, is the mother to Nas' daughter, Destiny. Due to the diss being what it was, along with a decline in quality from Nas that was perceived from fans, you could assume that many had counted Nas down for the count at the time. This was not the case, however, as on his next album, Stillmatic, released in December 2001, Nas came back on the song Ether, which is a vicious, verbal assault to Jay-Z and Roc-A-Fella Records. From the intro, it's made quite clear about how Nas felt about Jay-Z at the time. It starts with the gunshot sound sampled from Biggie's song Who Shot Ya, to the F Jay-Z sample from Tupac's song F Friends, which already is a good shot at Jay-Z as considering the history between them. The chorus comes in with anger and a bold stance of claiming victory already, bravado that is backed up easily throughout the verses. Nas clearly states his claim as the better rapper and to be influential to the rappers following him, Jay-Z being one of them, as he sends a shot at Jay at the end of the verse with the lines, "Name a rapper that I ain't influenced. I gave y'all chapters, but now I keep my eyes on the Judas. With Hawaiian Soapy fame, kept my name in his music." Pretty much all of Jay-Z's albums up to this point had some kind of Nas reference, whether it was a sample, a diss, or simply acknowledging his skills. In the second verse, Nas goes on to take aim at those who had his back and turn on him, continuing from the Judas line at the end of the first verse, and also this is where the infamous Jay-Z and Roc-A-Fella Records line comes in, as well as comparing Jay-Z to a camel and calling him out for biting Biggie's lyrics and claiming that he's better than him after Biggie died. For the third verse, Nas makes his verse an extended one like Jay-Z did in Takeover. He gets much more personal with Jay, going after his appearance again, and even getting parental with him with lines like, "My child, I've watched you grow up to be famous, and now I smile like a proud dad watching his only son that made it. You seem to be only concerned with dissing women, where you abused as a child, scared to smile, they called you ugly." He goes on to continue the onslaught with lines dissing Dame Dash, a friend and business partner of Jay at the time in Roc-A-Fella, by comparing them to Biggie and Puffy, and goes on to mention again how Jay steals Biggie's lines, as well as how Jay is a stan for always wanting to have worked with Nas. Takeover and Ether are considered to be the biggest songs of the beef, and also considered two of the best all-time diss tracks in hip-hop, and I myself rank both highly as well, though my preference of the two is Ether slightly. It even became a verb in the culture for when someone gets dissed. It gets a bit of hate because of the beat compared to Takeover, but I think that both of them are good. Once again, it's music, and that comes down to preference. Shortly after the release of Ether, Jay-Z responded with Super Ugly. The song has Jay-Z rapping over the Got Yourself a Gun beat, and then Dre's song Bad Intentions. And he goes in on Nas here with more lines about Nas being a fake thug and making up his rhymes about being a drug dealer, as well as a claim that Nas had to buy his chain back when he got robbed. In the third verse, Jay goes on to tell everyone what he alluded to back on verse 3 of Takeover, which was that he had an affair with Carmen Bryant. And here is where the song gets to be mostly low blows, such as claiming that they had sex in Nas's car and left condoms in it as well, as mentioning that Allen Iverson has had sex with Carmen as well, which is something Carmen would confirm in her tell-all book. The disrespectful nature of the song even caused Jay-Z's mother, Gloria Carter, to make Jay-Z apologize on the radio for those lines in particular. According to an interview by Carmen, Super Ugly was corny and an emotional reaction to Ether, and the line about the condoms in the seat was untrue, as her daughter wasn't even using a car seat at that age. She also states that AI confronted Jay-Z in a club for mentioning his name in the song as well. For the 2002 Summer Jam, Nas wanted to diss Jay-Z like Jay did to Prodigy and him in the previous Summer Jam. The radio station, however, denied Nas the chance to do so, which led him to go on their rival station 105.1 and diss Hot 97, as well as various members of Roc-A-Fella and other artists. Later on in November 2002, Jay-Z dropped his 7th album, Blueprint 2, The Gift and the Curse, which is the title track. Blueprint 2 is another diss to Nas, this one being a bit more calculated than Super Ugly. He goes in on Nas for being fake, and also makes mention of how Nas doesn't give back to the community like he does, and that he's donated money after situations like Columbine happened to help the victims, something that according to him, Nas hasn't done. He dedicates a decent portion of the second verse about the topic of charitable donations. Also, like he did on Takeover, he makes this second verse much longer than the first. He goes on to call Nas a hypocrite with the lines, "Is it Uchiwali or One Mic? Is it Black Girl Lost or Shorty owe you for ice?" Overall, it's another good diss track and goes a bit under the radar compared to songs like Takeover or Ether. Following this, Nas released his 6th album, God's Son, in December 2002. On the song, Last Real Nigga Alive, Nas starts off by detailing the story between him and Biggie, and then goes on to do the same regarding the beef between him and Jay. He admits that Kick in the Door by Biggie was about him, as well as confirming that Carmen did indeed have an affair with Jay-Z. He also states that his mother was sick while Jay-Z was dissing him, and that's why it took him a while to respond. He also makes claims of his victory over Jay-Z and Roc-A-Fella, ending his verse with the lines, "I was Scarface, Jay was Manolo. It hurt me when I had to kill him and his whole squad for Dolo." As I said with Blueprint 2, Nas also approaches this more calm and calculated. I don't consider this a diss track necessarily, as it's more so giving backstory on the issues rather than adding insults or anything to the situation. However, this is one of my favorite Nas songs ever. After this, the beef had settled down immensely until a few years later in 2005 when they appeared on stage together during a concert titled I Declare War, where Jay invited Nas on stage and they shook hands, officially ending the beef. Then on Nas's Hip Hop Is Dead album, released in December 2006, they appeared on a song together for the first time as Jay-Z featured on the song Black Republican. After a decade, Jay-Z finally got to do a song together with Nas. Also in 2006, Nas signed to Def Jam, which at the time Jay-Z was the president. The next year, on Jay-Z's American Gangster album, they collaborated yet again on the song Success. Then on the Ludacris album, Theater of the Mind, released in November of 2008, they were both featured on the song I Do It For Hip Hop. Years later, on the DJ Khaled album, titled Khaled Khaled, released in April 2021, they were again featured on the same song with Beyonce titled Sorry Not Sorry. The beef would finally be over publicly, but in 2018 when Nas released his album Nasir, Jay-Z and Beyonce released their collaborative album Everything Is Loved, that same week, which many online would say was intentional in order to take attention away from Nas' album release. This, however, is of course speculation from fans and not proven. However, if true, it would show that there's still some slight competition there if nothing else between the two. But this is hip-hop after all, of course. Both Jay-Z and Nas have had careers where they've made history in this genre and are respected by many as two of the greatest to ever do it. Their beef went on for years subliminally, and then a few more years publicly, and resulted in the two eventually working together, which is great to see, especially compared to some other beefs that wind up with violence or just never get squashed officially. Did you know that he was in the rap game years prior to his debut album? Yeah, since the mid-80s. You might have heard about his beef with Nas, which I've covered before on the channel, but now I'll be going over the beef between Jay-Z and his mentor, Jaz-O. Their friendship started back in the 80s in the Marcy Projects in Brooklyn, where they're from. They had first had a group called High Potent MCs along with two other rappers and recorded a few tracks, including the song HP Gets Busy. Then Jaz-O wound up getting signed to EMI Records and went out to London to record his debut album, Words to the Jazz, which had the single Hawaiian Sophie featuring Jay-Z and was then featured on his second album, To Your Soul, released in 1990 on the tracks It's That Simple and The Originators. Jaz-O is known as the originator of the triplet flow that was popularized by artists like Lord Infamous from 3 6 Mafia, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and more recently the Migos. In the mid-90s, Jay-Z, Dame Dash, and Kareem Burke, aka Biggs, started up Roc-A-Fella Records, and Jay dropped his debut album, Reasonable Doubt. Jaz appeared on the track Bring It On along with Sauce Money, and he also produced the track Ain't No Nigga featuring Foxy Brown, which was the second single from the album, and played a part in getting Jay signed to Def Jam. Then the next year in November, on the Volume 1 album, Jaz produced the track Rap Game Crack Game. He then produced 2 tracks for the Streets Is Watching soundtrack released in May 1998. Then in September 1998, Jay released his third album, Volume 2, which has the single Nigga What? Nigga Who? Which features Jaz and Emil. Surprisingly enough, he wouldn't be featured or have production credits on Jay-Z's next albums, which might have been the first signs of some kind of issue between the two. Their long-standing friendship and work relationship turned into lyrical sparring due to Jaz not wanting to sign to Roc-A-Fella. Allegedly, Jaz didn't trust Dame and Biggs and also was not satisfied with the amount they offered to sign either. Around this time, the beef between Nas and Jay-Z was heating up. Jay dropped the diss track Takeover, dissing Mobb Deep and Nas, then Nas responded with the track Ether, on which Nas mentioned Jaz-O a few times throughout the song. For example, saying that Jay-Z used to wear Jaz's chains and that he got his stage name from him as well. Then in March 2002, Jaz dropped the album Kings County with his group The Mobilari, and Jay-Z was featured on the track Let's Go. But he didn't show up for the video shoot, which understandably rubbed Jaz the wrong way and certainly didn't help the situation. Jaz-O had an interview with MTV News also in 2002, in which he essentially expressed dissatisfaction with how the relationship is, considering the help he has given Jay throughout his career. Now that diss tracks between the two old friends would commence, the Roc-A-Fella crew dissed Jaz-O with a freestyle to the classic Styles P track, Good Times. Jay-Z, Freeway, Young Guns, Gita K, and Memphis Bleek all dissed Jaz with plenty of lines taking aim for his age, among other things. Jay-Z starts it off by claiming Jaz just wants attention and spits a few bars, then passes it to Freeway, who spits one of the hardest bars off rip. You like the beer king dropped in minutes, 40 and broke. Which is a reference to the film Menace to Society and the fact that Jaz-O was close to 40 years old at the time. Everyone pretty much keeps calling him old, which I feel is pretty disrespectful considering he's one of the people who really helped Jay-Z get into a position to be as successful as he has been. The whole crew did alright, but I'm sure I'm not alone when I say it would have been nice to hear some more bars from Jay himself, rather than him being the boss and sending his crew after Jaz. It's a classic beat they're rapping over though, so I still find myself listening to it despite the fact that lyrically it's a bunch of bars about Jaz being old and broke. Jay-Z released Blueprint 2, The Gift and the Curse, a double disc album, in November 2002, and on the title track he disses Nas, but he also has a line referring to Jaz-O. Jaz-O released the diss track Over or It's Over, which can be seen as a double entendre for Jay-Z's nickname Hova, as well as simply telling him that it's over between them because of the beef. Throughout the song, Jaz sends Jay reminders of who brought him into the game, mentored, and supported him with lines like, "Where did you learn the verse? Get a burner first, that make all concern disperse. Flashback a few thousand days when you were coming of age. The line about the gun is a reference to the claim that Jaz was the one who gave Jay-Z the gun he used as a kid to shoot his brother for stealing from him. Jay-Z has mentioned the shooting incident before in various songs, and then later on in the song, Jaz makes another reference to the shooting with the line, "I couldn't shoot my brother unless he was beating on Ma." In the song You Must Love Me from Volume 1, Jay states that he ran to Jaz's house after the shooting occurred, so it's entirely likely that Jaz was also the one who gave him the gun to begin with. He also has a line referencing the Blueprint 2 album, that line being, "Me, double the gift, none of the curse." Then he has the lines, "Marcy the foundation, the game is mastered, some niggas are grown, some manufactured," which is essentially Jaz calling Jay-Z fake, not real, and keep that line in mind for later also, by the way. In response to the Good Times freestyle by the Roc-A-Fella crew, Jaz-O dropped a track titled Over Part 2, in which he's rapping over the beat for the hit single Nothing by Nori, and which of course is a sequel to the first one where he was going at Jay-Z. Jaz starts off of coming at Jay for sending the goons to diss him on that track and for basically turning his back on him despite Jaz being the one who paved the way for him and put him in his first music video. He disses Freeway next, and just like Freeway had one of the best lines in the Good Times freestyle, Jaz-O comes back at Freeway with a funny line of his own, dissing Free for his first name, Leslie. Next is Free Sneezy, you ain't Diesel, you a stink fat beetle. Jaz-O is deadly, you pussy, you ain't ready. You a high pitched whining ass nigga named Leslie. I can't vision a pump and a vest with that, maybe some pumps and a dress with that. Then he goes on to Young Chris and back to Freeway and so on. He didn't have much to say about some of the artists, as in the outro when he's talking, he directly says so with the lines, "Yo Jeter, I don't even know nothing about you, man, you're non-existent." Same with that little Chris Young Piss nigga. Then in November 2003, Jay-Z released a Black album, which was supposed to be his retirement album and is considered by many to be among one of his best. It features the track December 4th, which is his birthday. I remember hearing this track on the radio all the time back then. On the second verse, he once again mentions Jaz-O with the lines, "My self-esteem went through the roof, man, I got my swag, got a Volvo from this girl when her man got bagged. Plus I hit my mama with cash from a show that I had, supposedly knowing nobody paid Jaz whack ass." Things died down on wax for a while now. The infamous Roc-A-Fella split happened and people picked sides. Jay went on to be the president of Def Jam and so on, and eventually squashed his beef with Nas, which was going on at the same time. Then a few years later, in November 2008, Ludacris released his 6th album, Theater of the Mind, which includes the track I Do It for Hip Hop featuring Nas and Jay-Z. This happens to be one of my favorite Ludacris tracks and has the trio expressing their love of rap and how it changed their life for the better essentially. On Jay's verse he says, "Shout out to Grandmaster Flash and Kaz and even Jazz bum ass." Once again another dig at his former mentor, Jaz-O. Then that next month, the promotional single Brooklyn Go Hard by Jay-Z and Santa Gold for the Biggie biopic titled Notorious was released. On the track, Jay-Z raps about growing up in Brooklyn, where he and Biggie are both from. It's not a diss track, but it is one of my favorite Jay-Z tracks. It features the widely loved lines, "I father, I Brooklyn, Dodger them, I jack, I rob, I sin, aw man, I'm Jackie Robinson, except when I run base, I dodge the pen." The triple entendre for baseball, drug dealing, and Jackie Robinson. Anyways, shortly afterwards, Jaz-O released another diss track going at Jay-Z titled Go Harder, in response to Jay mentioning him in I Do It for Hip Hop. Jaz raps over the beat for Brooklyn, Go Hard, and then on the second verse raps over the beat to I Do It for Hip Hop. This is a diss track I've listened to a whole lot, probably one of my favorites considering the beats used and the fact that I can't think of many rappers that go at Jay-Z directly. But who else would be fitting besides the person who helped him out from the very beginning and showed him the ropes? Jaz-O responds directly to the Jackie Robinson bars with the lines, "You dare compare yourself to Jackie Robinson, you Jack and Robinson on your own family and friends. Blood money, kill charges, and mandates. You can dodge the pen, but can't steal my fan base." And then for his second verse, he raps over beatboxing before the beat switches to I Do It for Hip Hop, which in a way is mimicking Jay's verse from that track, since on the Luda song, he rapped with an old school flow that was very common in the 80s when they started rapping. Jaz talks about back in the days rhyming at the park and how he was basically famous in his hood for rapping before Jay-Z even came into the picture, and has the lines, "I rhymed first and they ended the session, till I said let me hear 'em even though I'm so deaf, man. The neophyte graduated a freshman." That last line holds some significance since, as I said a minute ago, I really listened to this track a lot. If you've never taken a moment to check out channel memberships for this channel, then you might not notice, but 2 of the tiers are currently titled Neophyte and Freshman, and that comes from this song right here. Speaking of which, consider becoming a channel member if you want to help us support the channel further and you really love hip-hop like I do and want to continue seeing more videos like this. To wrap up this track, Jaz finishes his second verse with the lines, "Got this artificial gangster testing your guy, wearing his I could be the best nigga disguise. Told y'all before, some cats are actors. Some dudes are grown, some manufactured." Like I said earlier, the manufactured line from the Over diss track would come back into play. Then around August of that year, the track Gangsta's Ride by Game and Jaz-O was released, which has Jaz-O once again taking shots at Jay in his verses. On his first verse, he has the lines, "I'm the prototype, first one, king of the triplet. When I first did it, Twista wasn't even in the business. Knew big when he wasn't even in the business. Put the little nigga Jay-Z in the business." Once again, staking his claim and helping Jay-Z out in the very beginning of his career. Then on his third verse, he has the lines, "Jaz-O, stupid motherfucker, not Sean. Never been bashed on a Tupac song." Which is a reference to the fact that Jay-Z got dissed by Tupac on tracks like Bomb First and All Out. It makes sense for them to do this track together considering Game had his own beef with Jay-Z at the time. Shortly afterwards, the Jay-Z album Blueprint 3 was released, and on the intro track, What We Talking About, featuring Luke Steele, Jay once again takes a shot at Jaz with the lines, "People keep talking about Hov left him flat, trying to rewrite history. Let's talk about facts. They made millions, even Jaz made some scraps. He could have made more, but he ain't signed his contract." A reference to one of the driving things behind this whole beef, Jaz-O turning down the contract that he was offered by Roc-A-Fella Records. Sometime during the beef, Jay-Z made an appearance on the Dave Letterman show and was asked about his upbringing in Marcy Projects and how he got into the rap game. And Jay-Z mentions that a guy by the name of Jaz had a record deal and things snowballed from there essentially. The feud died down again until in December 2017 when Jaz-O and Jay-Z met up during Jay-Z's 444 tour at a show in Chicago. They were pictured together backstage along with producer No ID. You could say the beef was officially squashed then. Similar to what he has done to other rappers he had beef with, he signed a deal with his company, Roc Nation, with Jaz-O in 2019. He really is a businessman at heart, that much is clear. In 2020, Jaz-O released the warm-up through Equity Distribution, Jay-Z's distribution company for Roc Nation. I gave it a listen and it's pretty good. It includes the track Lookin' Like featuring the late Nipsey Hussle. Then around January 2022, Jaz-O had an interview on Vlad TV and was questioned by Vlad about his relationship with Jay-Z among other things. He brought up the whole situation with Jay-Z shooting his brother and then going to Jaz's place afterwards that Jay rapped about on the song, and Jaz confirmed that to be true, that it was his gun. He also asked Jaz about the rumor that Nas turned to Jaz for information about Jay-Z to diss him on Ether, to which Jaz stated it isn't true. He went on to ask several other questions about Jay-Z, to which Jaz confirmed or refuted regarding their relationship and the beef, including confirming that the contract offer from Roc-A-Fella Records was for $150K. Overall, the beef was squashed, and it is nice to see the mentor and mentee no longer at odds. Personally, my favorite tracks from the beef are the Go Harder, Over Part 2, and Good Times Freestyle tracks. What do you think about this beef? Who won it lyrically? We all know that Jay-Z has had much more financial success than most rappers, so that's not even a question. To me though, he only took a few jabs here and there, and even for the best response to come from his side, he mostly had his artists out there sending shots. Would Jay-Z still have been successful without the help from Jaz? I'd say probably so. But still, that's one thing Jaz had over Jay in the beef. This beef goes back to 2003 when Joe released the hit single Pump It Up, which has gotten him called a one-hit wonder by many. This beef between the two started with an attempt at getting Jay-Z to do a verse for a remix to Pump It Up. Apparently, Jay-Z claimed he would do the remix for $250,000, and that high price point is what set the beef off. However, according to an interview Joe had on Drink Champs in 2023, he stated that it wasn't him that spoke to Jay, it was Skane, who had worked as an A&R, that had the conversation with Jay, and also that the amount was not $250,000, but it was indeed a high amount at the time for them to pay for a feature.
Is it true that you asked Jay-Z to get on Pump It Up, and he said, give me $250,000?
That's the rumor. That's a rumor. Because I didn't personally ask him. I couldn't personally speak to him.
Did you go through Web and
But I
Nitty?
think Skane reached out.
Okay,
I think
so the rumor is you asked him for $250,000.
No, I asked him for a verse.
A verse, and he asked you
But you didn't ask him directly, you're saying?
Yeah. I think he said to Skane, I was outside probably in the hallway.
But Skane is direct.
Hall.
That's like me asking you for bars.
And for people that don't know, it's Desert Storm, that whole camp that you were in, right?
Very powerful guy. Big up Skane Dollar.
Yeah.
Very powerful dude. One of the Clues right hands man.
Jay-Z then decided to do a freestyle to pump it up, coming out right after he basically declined doing the remix. Maybe he felt insulted by being asked to be on a remix to a song with an up-and-coming rapper, or he just had a personal issue with Joe. Either way, it's a pretty petty thing to do in my view. On the intro, he quotes Ice Cube from his track Jackin' for Beats, on which Cube was rapping on different beats throughout the track with the line, "Give me that beat, fool, it's a full-time jack move." Then says, "Don't worry, Skano, I'll give it back soon. Just having a little fun. What's up, little nigga?" That likely being a reference to the fact that Skane had asked him to be on the remix and referring to Joe as the little nigga in question. On the freestyle, he has some lines which seem to be subliminal shots aimed at Joe. He has the lines, "Worry, I'm not the Mike Jordan of the mic recording. It's Hovey, baby. You Kobe, maybe. Tracy McGrady. Matter of fact, you a Harold Miner, J.R. Ryder, washed up on marijuana. Even worse, you a Purvis Ellis. You worthless fella. You ain't no athlete. You Sean Bradley. I ain't talking to nobody in particular. My flow's just vehicular homicide when I'm kicking up dust. Anybody in my path is a car crash waiting to happen." The athlete lines are Jay calling himself the best in the sport of rap, and the person he's calling not an athlete could very well be taken as a shot at Joe, considering he's using the beat to his song. The funny thing is, the beat for this song was actually offered to other artists before Joe, like Jay-Z himself and Beanie Siegel. The line about dust is possibly a reference to how Joe is admittedly a former Angel Dust addict. However, that is assuming that Jay-Z knew this at this point. It's possible considering they were on the same label and all. Joe Budden responded with a freestyle of his own, once again using the Pump It Up beat. Joe starts off with saying, "Give me that beat, fool, it's a full-time jack move. Sorry Jay, Webb said take it back, dude. Nitty too, he played a part in that." Which is Joe pretty much stealing the beat back from Jay, who stole it from him. Webb and Nitty are New York street guys who Joe was associated with, and he's mentioned on his music and on his podcast several times. Joe starts off addressing Jay with the lines, "It's been a good week, Hova, you can give it back now. All these rappers is cooking crack and took the realness out the game, it's time to put it back in. The fans finally got it understood, they just yapping, while Joey's in the hood like Madden." By this point, Jay-Z had started referring to himself as Hova, so that is Joe talking directly to Jay. All these rappers cooking crack is a reference to the numerous rappers out there that rap about selling crack, Jay being one of the most prominent examples at that time. Joe responds to Jay's athlete lines with some lines of his own. "I ain't Kobe or Tracy, Jay-Z, JB, Merc, Joey the Future, I'm more like Dirk, anybody buying respect me, try and wet me, y'all dudes will never make it, y'all are Tyus, Edney, I'ma stand out like Yao Ming, I'm what's sparking now, like fallback Shaq, I'm starting now, boys popping it, toys popping spit, I'm not from around these parts, I'm Stojakovic, never hear your man say I'm the Jordan of rap, and he's getting fatigued early and his scoring is lacking, legacy is getting ruined and you don't want that, so pretty much learn from him, don't come back." Now, I don't follow sports, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Just as Jay mentioned a bunch of athletes, Joe is showing that he could do the same. He then follows it up with the lines, "And rap is getting whacked, time for G's to step in, cause you are not that hot, don't believe the yes men, ain't about who's better than, it's so evident, they hard to be real with no evidence, and I ain't coming at Jay cause he's the greatest breathing, but he already paved the way, I'm just laying my cement." Ironically enough, he takes shots at someone for their legacy allegedly being ruined and whatnot, but he also claims to not be taking shots at Jay and calls him the greatest breathing. He also makes a reference to 50 Cent on here with the lines, "Seen many men with the Jake. Next time y'all listen to many men, I'll make sure you relate. Only Jay coulda came, just blazed it like me. Everybody else chill. Just Blaze can agree." Around this time, Joe was also beefing with 50 Cent and G-Unit. If you haven't seen my video yet on their beef, then check that one out as well. Many Men is of course the promotional single by 50 Cent from his album Get Rich or Die Tryin', which was also released in 2003. And Just Blaze is the producer of Pump It Up, who was known, along with Kanye West at the time, for producing a lot of tracks for Jay, in particular on his Blueprint album released in 2001, which is considered a classic by many. Joe then finishes the freestyle off with the lines, "What the dealin', like New York been soft since Bin Laden came through and crushed the buildings, trying to restore the feeling, just speaking to ya, I'm just speaking through ya." The line about the buildings is both a reference to the September 11th attack on the World Trade Center in Manhattan, New York, but also a reference to the lines from the Jay-Z song Money Cash Hoes from his album Volume 2 Hard Knock Life. What's the dealings? It's like New York's been soft ever since Snoop came through and crushed the buildings. I'm trying to restore the feelings. That itself was a reference to the video for the Dogg Pound song New York, New York, in which the video featured Snoop Dogg crushing buildings in New York. Also going back to September 11, 2001, that was the day that Jay released the Blueprint album, which I mentioned a minute ago. Fast forward to 2005, and Roc-A-Fella co-founders Dame Dash, Kareem Burke aka Biggs, and Jay-Z split up, with Jay becoming the president of Def Jam and Dame and Biggs forming their own company. This news didn't sit well with some artists on Def Jam, in particular Joe Budden and DMX. Joe is known for not exactly being happy with the record labels he's been signed to, and Def Jam is no exception. He's been on interviews years later talking about how he could have handled the situation with Jay becoming the president of Def Jam better though. DMX had an interview with The Breakfast Club in 2012 in which he spoke on several things. One of those being about how for his 6th album, Jay was the president of the label and Jay had told him things would be good. But then when he recorded his album and shot the video for the single, Jay basically didn't follow through.
What made DMX stop recording and we being truthful, because we want to know. We haven't heard from X in a long time.
Y'all know the story already, you know what I'm saying? Used to be my dog, you was in my left titty, you know, screenwriter die, I thought you would die with me, you know. What happened was, you know, like I said, I had the crazy track record at Def Jam, everything was good. You know, I go to do the 6th album, and, you know,
Jay-Z became president.
Yeah. You know, when he first got the job, he hit me with the call like, yo, dog, inmates is running the building, like, yo, you good? Finish the album, shoot the video. What happened? Niggas go on vacation and, you know, we don't know. What you mean you don't know? How do you listen to a whole album, pick a single, shoot a video, then don't know? Okay, I see what's really good. You're trying to eliminate the competition. You know, because at first you retire, you know, then get me off the label, now you're back rapping again.
His album wound up going through delays, which explains the gap in releases, with his first 5 albums being released between 1998 and 2003, but his 6th album being released in 2006. A similar issue also apparently went on with LL Cool J. According to DMX, Jay was trying to get rid of the competition. Remember in 2003, he released his retirement album, The Black Album, and then he returned to rap in 2006 with his comeback album, Kingdom Come. I say all that to say that Joe wasn't the only person that had issues with Jay being the president of Def Jam, and it is a part of the beef between these two. Around this time, Joe's 2nd album on Def Jam was supposed to be released, which was going to be titled The Growth. It wound up getting shelved, apparently due to Jay-Z. During all this, Joe started putting out mixtapes, namely the Mood Music series. On Mood Music, The Worst of Joe Budden, the first in the series, he has a track titled Def Jam Diss. Granted, this mixtape was released before Jay became the president of the label, it probably doesn't help the relationship between Joe and Jay. During the freestyle, Joe has the lines, "Then they went and kept Joe off the Rock the Mic tour. Somebody probably thought Joey would've rocked the mic more." Considering Rock the Mic is a song by State Property members Beanie Siegel and Freeway, who were known for being signed to Roc-A-Fella, a label as I said Jay is the co-founder of, it would appear to be a shot at Jay and perhaps the label as a whole. That once again goes back to the idea that Jay was concerned about the competition in the rap game, or maybe just had a problem with Joe in particular. In 2006, Joe released the mixtape Mood Music 2, Can It Get Any Worse? And on that mixtape is the song Old School Mouse. On that song, he makes mention of his beef with Jay-Z. Joe has the lines, "Don't hear Reasonable Doubt the same no more, I can't listen to Blueprint, got a resentment toward Hove, tried to hate on him, throwing in my 2 cents. They say don't bite the hand that feeds you, even if I wanted to, I can't, no teeth to. Don't get me wrong, still I love Clue and Hove, but they both rich, so what they gotta do with Joe?" Before that, he mentions falling out with DJ Clue, who was one of the co-founders of Desert Storm Records. So yeah, once again, Joe has a history of record label issues and airs out his grievances with a bunch of bars. In 2007, Joe released the mixtape Mood Music 3, For Better or For Worse. On that mixtape is the track Talk to Him. Joe sends shots at a few people on the song, Jay-Z being one of them. He has the lines, "For you times is tough too cause ain't nobody buying your albums but you. From the sounds of everything I hear, you lost it. Still rap but your ears exhausted. Fuck your bunch of money, put your ego to the side, and maybe it's time to study your understudy. Essentially, screw Jay-Z being rich. He's still rapping, but he's not as good as he used to, according to Joe at least. I'm sure there's other people out there that felt the same way though. Then he finishes the verse with the lines, I mean, are we hustling or are we grown up? Every time I hear you, you changing your tone up. When a new generation think about Jordan, all they remember is when Iverson crossed him. Take off the blazer, loosen up the tie, nigga fell in love and Superman died. Better learn to cover your ears when the toys pop. I hate your last single, Boys Rock. Can we hear some new niggas of promise? The new generation won't forget you, we promise. We'll always pay homage, but let's get one thing understood, son. Every encore ain't a good one. Once again, another bar about athletes with the Jordan and Iverson lines. Basically, Joe compares Jordan and Iverson to Jay and himself. Also, there's a shot at Jay having switched up his style with the whole blazer and loosening up the tie line. Basically, Jay is a businessman now rather than a rapper. Then the encore line is a reference to the song Encore from the Black Album, which was supposed to be his retirement album as I mentioned earlier. The new single line is a reference to the Jay-Z song Rock Boys from the American Gangster album released in 2007.
I didn't get to him till all the way at the end. For you times is rough too, cause ain't nobody buying your albums but you. Ain't nobody buying your albums but you. From everything I hear, you lost it. Still rap, alright, but your ears exhausted. Fuck your bunch of money. Let's put your ego to the side. Maybe it's time to study your understudy. I mean, are we hustling or are we grown up? Every time I hear you changing your tone up. When the new generation think about Jordan, all they remember is when Iverson crossed them. Let's take off the blazer, loosen up the tie. Nigga fell in love and Superman died. Better learn to cover your ears when them toys pop. I hate your last single. Only a few of your boys rock. Can we hear some new niggas with promise? The new generation won't forget you, we promise. We'll always pay homage, but let's get one thing understood, son. Every encore ain't a good one. It's not bad.
I'm saying so.
But I mean, even that, like, of course it will say that I'm coming at him. But I mean, honestly, I don't have the accolades or the accomplishments to be able to come at Jay. What I was doing was more so expressing myself. You just get frustrated.
Also on the mixtape is the track Roll Call. On that track, Joe again makes a mention of the Def Jam situation and Jay-Z. On the first verse, Joe has the lines, see niggas trying to block the road rather than my label drop the growth. They should drop us both. See, I could scream Def Jam and what they used to be, but that ain't for me to say, that's for you to see. If not Method Man or Redman, Ghostface, Young Guns, need I say Freeway? The proof is me. Still don't believe me? Then where's Petey Petey? They ain't really giving a fuck unless you Jeezy. That's what my mind say. Just know if you ain't the president or Kanye, you won't see the time of day. In other words, only the biggest artists on the label are getting priority, according to Joe. As I said earlier, The Growth was supposed to be Joe's second album on Def Jam, but it got shelved. It's often said that when a fellow artist is in charge of the record label, they're going to be putting their own career ahead of others. This would appear to be one of those times. So personally, I can't say I blame him for feeling the way he did. At least he put it on wax and gave us music to listen to. In August 2009, the group Slaughterhouse, which Joe was a member of, released their self-titled debut album. If you don't know, the other members of the group are Royce da 5'9", Crooked I, and Joell Ortiz, or were rather, as the group has since been dissolved. On that album is the track Microphone. Joe has my favorite verse on it, by the way. Joe on his verse takes yet another subliminal shot at Jay. He has the lines, too many dogs, not enough barking yet. Too many blueprints, not enough architects. This would be yet another reference to Jay-Z's Blueprint album series. At that point, Jay had Blueprint 1, 2, and 2.1, and 3 was due to be released soon. Speaking of which, Blueprint 3 was released in September 2009, and it features the song Reminder. It's one of my favorite songs from the album, and on the track he sends a shot at Joe. On the third verse, he has the lines, throwbacks I threw him back. Remember those? Button-ups? Young Hove, tell them Ordinary Joe's button up. This was a shot at Joe, of course, calling him ordinary. Simple enough, and it very well might be a response to the previous Joe line about blueprints. Joe responded to this line on the track Keep On in January 2010. He finishes his second verse with the lines, "And not to let off a shot, but I'm better than hot. They don't need a reminder if they never forgot." A quick response to Jay's reminder track. Then in August 2011, Jay-Z and Kanye released the album Watch the Throne. Shortly afterwards, for the BET Hip Hop Awards in October 2011, Shady Records had a cypher featuring Yellow Wolf, Slaughterhouse, and Eminem. On Joe's verse, he has the lines, "Don't blame y'all for being trash, fans are copping it, the radio's the crime scene, the masses are the hostages. In my youth, I'd throw shots, the fad was dodging it. I'm grown, I ain't watching the throne, I'm sabotaging it." A subliminal shot aimed at Jay-Z and a stray shot aimed at Kanye. Unlike other beefs the two have been involved in, like Joe's beef with G-Unit or Jay's beef with Nas, this one didn't have as much of a direct back and forth. Like I said, Jay only had a few subliminal shots at Joe over the years, while Joe was the main one sending shots at Jay and Def Jam as a whole. Joe, however, would speak on his relationship with Jay-Z on multiple interviews, as well as his podcast, initially titled Our Name This Podcast Later, which has since been changed to the Joe Budden Podcast. For example, on one episode of his podcast, he talked about how he had multiple conversations with one of the co-hosts, Mal, who was a younger brother of Biggs, about getting Jay to have a conversation with Joe about Joe's grievances on the beef. They talked about how they ran into Jay at Duce Palooza one year, and before he could even finish what he was saying, Jay simply responded with, "So what?" Possibly a way of dismissing Joe's feelings on the matter because he didn't consider it a big deal, as rappers jump on other people's beats all the time, or possibly because it had been over a decade since the incident had occurred. Either way though, the beef between the two has since been squashed, as Joe has retired from rapping and is focused on his podcast, and Jay has not put out an album of his own in some years now as well. Joe has mentioned Jay on his podcast, but it's not in a rap beef sense anymore, and more of what a typical podcaster would do, as in reporting on the news and the like. What do you think about the beef though? Was Joe right in venting his frustration in songs about Def Jam and Jay's decision making as president of the label? Was it right for Jay-Z to want to charge $250,000 to appear on the remix of one of his label mates' songs? Was he right in jumping on it and freestyling and setting shots at Joe? Have you ever heard of rappers beefing with their own label mates? It's happened on at least a few occasions, and one of the best examples of that is the infamous Roc-A-Fella beef, in particular Jay-Z and Cameron. They weren't simply label mates, however, as Jay-Z is one of the co-founders of the label as well. Regarding this beef, it is important to know how Roc-A-Fella was started, so we're going to go back to the mid-90s real quick. After getting turned down by other record labels, Sean Carter, Damon Dash, and Kareem Burke, aka Jay-Z, Dame Dash, and Biggs, founded Roc-A-Fella Records to release Jay's music. In 1996, they released his debut album, Reasonable Doubt. Then in 1997, sold 50% of the label to Def Jam and was now distributed and marketed by them as well. They then went on to release In My Lifetime Volume 1, Volume 2, Hard Knock Life, and Volume 3, Life and Times of S. Carter in 97, 98, and 99 respectively, and started signing artists like Jay-Z's Prodigy, Memphis Bleak, and others to the label. Cameron in the 90s had met Biggie through his friend Mace, and then met Lance Rivera, aka Un, through Biggie and signed to his label Entertainment and released his first two albums, Confessions of Fire and SDE, in 98 and 2000 respectively. Then in 2001, through fellow Harlem resident Dame Dash, Cam signed to Roc-A-Fella and signed his group The Diplomats, aka Dipset, to the label as well and released his third album, Come Home With Me, in May 2002. On that album is the song Welcome to New York, which features Jay-Z and Joel Santana. It's probably safe to say that things were still cool between the two at this point, but that would quickly change. Around this time, Philadelphia rapper Petey Crack, who wound up joining the group State Property, had recorded the single One for Petey, which was featured on the Paid in Full soundtrack released in October 2002. The song features Freeway, Young Chris from the Young Guns, and Beanie Siegel. According to Cameron, however, he knew Petey before he was officially signed to State Property, and that he and Juelz both originally recorded for the song, but Dame felt that it should be Philly rappers on the song instead of Harlem rappers, as apparently Roc-A-Fella was a bit divided in that way.
Nobody's fucking with PD Crack. State Property, nobody. PD Crack, I was gonna fuck with Speedy Crack.
Right.
He had the song. One for PD Crack.
And two, man.
Yeah. That was his song by itself. I put me and Juelz on it. Take it to Dame, I'm like, I'm about to fuck with him. He's like, he from Philly, you should fuck with State Property. I'm like, why everything gotta be so Philly this, Harlem this?
He also stated that PD told him that when they played the song for Jay, Jay said to delete Cam'ron's verse. That version with Cam and Juelz wound up being released on a mixtape by Dipset.
This is what PD Crack said. He's like, because he wanted to give me a copy, but I already had a copy. Right. And I put it on my mixtape.
In September 2002, Dame made an announcement that Cam was going to be the vice president of Roc-A-Fella, without consulting Jay-Z about the decision, however, which would further the tension between them. A while after the single Oh Boy from Come Home With Me was released, Jay-Z recorded a verse for a remix, but Cam'ron, in response to Jay deleting his verse for One for PD, deleted Jay's verse for the Oh Boy remix, which once again added more fuel to the fire.
To bring it to Oh Boy.
Right. So,
bam.
You know, Jay one day was like, yo, I did a little something for you in the studio. I was coming in the studio, he was walking out. So I'm like, then he had something to Oh Boy. And I was like,
this is Oh Boy's already #1?
Yeah, it's popping.
This, all right.
This is popping.
Let's be clear. Yeah,
this is popping Oh Boy.
The rough draft for Oh Boy. No, this is when Oh Boy's already lit.
Right.
You on tour.
Right. So I listened to it and I was like, erase that shit.
Also, there were other incidents like the seemingly awkward appearance that Cam and Jay had on 106 in Park. Reportedly, Cam'ron was supposed to be interviewed, but Jay-Z made an appearance without Cam being told. On top of that, there wasn't just tension between the two. At this time, Jay was also beefing with Nas, as on Jay's Blueprint 2 album released in November 2002, he dissed Nas on the title track. And Nas also mentioned Jay on his God's Son album released in December on the track Last Real Nigga Alive. Cam'ron was embroiled in a beef with Nas as well, because in an interview with Power 105.1 while Nas was dissing rival radio station Hot 97.1, Nas took aim at others including Cam'ron and says that his album was whack, which resulted in Cam dissing him back.
You know what I'm saying? Let's get real and be creative. I buy these people albums, you know what I'm saying? And they ain't talking about nothing from Cam to everybody. I mean, I like Cam and everything. He's a good lyricist, but the album's whack, man.
According to various sources, Jay-Z dissed Nas on that Oh Boy verse that Cam deleted. So at this time, it would probably have been in the best interest of Roc-A-Fella artists to show some level of solidarity, but it seems that wasn't really the case. Speaking of Nas, according to Cam'ron from an appearance he made on the Drink Champs podcast, one of the reasons Jay had an issue with him is because he was cool with DJ K-Slay, who is the one who premiered Ether, the diss track that Nas aimed at Jay-Z and Roc-A-Fella Records, which was included on Nas's 5th album, Stillmatic, released in December 2001.
First thing that happened, I brought K-Slay up there. And I guess I didn't know he was mad at K-Slay because K-Slay must have played Ether at the time, and because, you know, we using K-Slay to host our mixtape. So K came up there, boom. Jay wasn't there. But as I'm leaving, Jay is in the lobby, a baseline. So I walk K to the elevator, and I guess they said, K and Jay-Z said, what's up, whatever. So I walk back in, he said, yo, you gotta be careful who you bringing around here. We might have just slapped the shit out of K-Slay. And I'm like, wait, what's going on, man?
The Jay-Z and Nas beef is another one that I've covered on the channel before, so check that out after this for the details. In 2003, Jay-Z released the Black Album, which was marketed as his retirement album. Dipset released their debut album, Diplomatic Immunity, and then in 2004, Cam'ron released his 4th album, Purple Haze, which was also released on Roc-A-Fella. In 2005, the infamous Roc-A-Fella split occurred, with the other half of the label being sold to Def Jam and Jay-Z being made the president of Def Jam. Dame and Biggs wound up starting their own label, Dame Dash Music Group, and the Roc-A-Fella artists then picked where they would like to go. Cam'ron and Dipset wound up leaving Roc-A-Fella and signing to Asylum Records. On October 23, 2005, Cam'ron was shot while driving his car in Washington, D.C., and he claims that the shooter made the Roc-A-Fella diamond hand gesture before the shots went off. Then in January 2006, Dipset had a press conference where Cam spoke about the shooting in DC and other things like his plans for Dipset and beef with Jay-Z and the diss track that had surfaced aimed at Jay. Some months later, in May 2006, Cam released his 5th album, Killer Season, which set off the dissing on wax that occurred between the two. On the album is the track You Gotta Love It, featuring Max B. On the intro of the track, Cam expresses exactly why he's dissing Jay in typical Cam fashion. That is, with a sense of humor. He gives 5 reasons why he's dissing Jay, 3 of them being related to Dame. The 4th being that the person that shot him in DC made the rock hand symbol before shooting him, and the 5th reason being because Jay-Z apparently was seen wearing jeans with sandals on, which makes him ineligible to be the king of New York. One of the funniest things in the song, however, is the fact that Cam gets Jay's age incorrect on the song 3 different times. Once again, probably for humorous effect. He goes from calling him 37 to 42 to 40 throughout the song. According to the birthday given online for Jay being born in December 1969 and the album being released in May 2006, Jay would be 36 years old at the time. He starts the first verse off with the lines, "You ain't the only one with big wallets, got it, my shit's brolic, dot it, but your publishing should go to Miss Wallace. Honest, stealing big shit, he made 2 albums, you wildin'," which is a shot at Jay for all the times Jay has used lines from Biggie. Then towards the end of the first verse, he has the line, "I know he 40 years old, I don't respect my elders," which once again is a reference to Jay's age. Jay wasn't that much older than Cam, however, as at this point, like I said, Jay was likely 36 and Cam was 30. On the second verse, Cam takes aim at Jay's appearance, similar to how Nas did on Ether. In the beginning of the verse, Cam has the lines, "Who can fuck with me? No mammal, but with tote handles at your open-toe sandals and you look like Joe Camel." Joe Camel was the mascot for the cigarette brand Camel. He follows it up with lines referencing how he got out of his deal with Roc-A-Fella. "Off of Roc-A-Fella, right? No contact, but bust this fly joint to put inside the contract. I left the label right, lot of cats wonder how. Every time I diss that label, I get fined 100 thou. Just for telling y'all, I get fined 100 thou. Huh, them cats are ill, 5 times $500,000. So basically, he's not allowed to speak negatively on The Roc as part of his release from contract, but he's dissing Jay in this song, who was one of the co-founders. So I guess he felt it was worth taking the risk. He then goes on to talk about Jay's then girlfriend Beyonce with the lines, "Beyonce, fiance, check my second LP, I might bring it back. That's your girl, that's your world, had the thing fucking singing about slinging crack." That's a reference to the song Do It Again, featuring Destiny's Child and Jim Jones, from Cam's second album, SDE. Then Cam follows it up mentioning the 1999 stabbing of Lance Rivera with the lines, "It ain't my fault I'm raw, I'm sorry B, but I want a war," and he stabbed over Charlie Baltimore. That is Cam claiming that it was over Charlie Baltimore rather than the leaking of the Volume 3 album, which was the common belief. He then goes off towards the end of the song saying things like how ugly Jay-Z is. On the original version of the song, however, he goes a bit further, as after that he mentions the vocals from that song mentioned earlier featuring Destiny's Child, and then plays the part in which the group sang. This is the most well-known track from their beef, and Jay did respond, which I'll get to shortly. Cam'ron dissed Jay-Z on a remix to Atlanta rapper Young Jock's debut single It's Going Down from his debut album Young Jock City. Cam has the lines, "Jigga what, jigga who, he a motherfucking jigaboo. Play a hater, I don't play them games. You got beef with killer, nigga say my name. You shy, he snorting raw or they reported wrong." Those lines are a reference to Jay's single Jigga What, Jigga Who, and the remix to the song I Don't Wanna Be Alone by the group Shy, which features verses by Jay-Z. He then has the line, I got homes where you hide, I hustle where you live, which is yet another Jay-Z line, that being from the song Ride or Die from the Volume 3 album. Cam then goes on to mention rappers Young Jeezy and Rick Ross with the lines, he only go to Marcy on Christmas Day, you not Santa, fuck clothes from Birds Off, before you burk off, why don't you drop work off, or sign a rapper from the borough, get off Jeezy dick and Rick Ross shit, but he a jerk off. At this time, Jeezy had released his third album, Let's Get It, Thug Motivation 101, on Def Jam, which featured the hit single Go Crazy, which features Jay-Z. And Rick Ross was also on Def Jam, and Jay-Z was featured on the remix to his hit single Hustlin' from his album Port of Miami, released in August 2006. Speaking of the Hustlin' remix, Jay-Z dissed Cameron on that song, and if you look at the lines on Jay's verse on that song compared to Cam's verse on It's Going Down, it would appear that Cam's verse was in response to Jay's. For example, Jay starts his verse with the lines, hold up, who you haters think you talking to? I'm the fucking boss, white on white, G4, hater get lost, I'm in the air, I don't hear niggas corny raps. As on Cam's verse, he has the lines, only G4 I'm on is a laptop, got me over depressed, nigga hove is a mess, is G5 minimum or Global Express, among other lines that appear to be direct responses. Also on that verse, Jay has the lines, yeah I balls a lot, now I owns the team, Ricky Ross, Young Jeezy, we owns the scene, which appears to be the line that prompted Cam's line I mentioned a minute ago. Then in November 2006, Jay-Z released his comeback album Kingdom Come. On the track Dig a Hole, Jay disses Cam once again, among others. On the first verse, Jay has the lines, niggas like Hove, why don't you get an old boy? Why kill a puppet and leave Geppetto alive? Why not wait to catch them all together? Considering how Old Boy sounds similar to Oh Boy, the hit single by Cameron, this would appear to be a shot at Cam. Also, these lines allude to Dame being the one pulling the strings behind Jay getting dissed by Cam. It makes plenty of sense when you consider that on You Gotta Love It, Cam even stated that he's doing it because Jay stole the label from Dame. Then in the third verse, Jay has the lines, you selling in low twos, only time you went plat my chain was on your neck, that's an actual fact, so I'm praying that it spills outside of the booth, that's when y'all niggas outside of y'all truth, outside of your league, that's not what you do, niggas throwing rock signs outside of your coop. These lines are yet again a shot at Cam, talking about how his album sales have dropped since he left Roc-A-Fella, and also mentioning the shooting that happened in DC where Cam was shot. Cameron wasn't the only one involved in the beef, however. In November, Jim Jones released his third album, Hustlers POME, Product of My Environment, and on that album is the hit single We Fly High, which was released earlier in October. Jay-Z rapped over the beat himself and on it dissed Jim Jones. That song was a response to Jim Jones dissing him on the track Kingdom Done, which was named after Jay's sixth album Kingdom Come. On the track, Dame Dash speaks on the intro and outro and Jim disses Jay. This would also once again explain why Jay took shots at Cam and Dame on the Dig a Hole track from the album that I mentioned a minute ago. Later on, Cameron released a track that you can see online with different titles like Swagger Jacker, or another one being I'm Not a Writer, I'm a Biter, which was a bit unorthodox of a diss track as really the song was a compilation of lines that Biggie rapped, then playing Jay's version of the lines, hence the Swagger Jacker title, and is Cam calling Jay-Z a biter once again. The tension between the group and Jay went back and forth for a while. Then in November 2010, Ye released his fifth album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Cam and Jim did a freestyle to one of the songs from the album, that being Runaway. On the freestyle, Cam takes a shot at Ye and Jay with the lines, and Kanye, you a sucker nigga, this Dame, so my attitude is fuck a nigga, sucking jigger, how you gonna live with that, took your beat, now come get it back. Ye has been known, especially back then, for looking up to Jay, like for example the song Big Brother from his third album, Graduation, so Cam is once again defending Dame. Ye is one of those people that pretty much sided with Jay during the split. Then in September 2013, Drake released his third album, Nothing Was the Same. On that album is the song Pound Cake / Paris Morton 2. On the Pound Cake portion, Jay-Z is featured. On his second verse, he has the lines, I've done made more millionaires than the Lotto did. Dame made millions, Biggs made millions, Ye made millions, Just made millions, Lior made millions, Cam made millions, meaning to tell you if he wasn't in his feelings. Basically taking credit for making them all loads of money. Cam responded to the line about him on the song Come and Talk to Me from his mixtape Ghetto Heaven Volume 1. The song uses the beat from the song of the same name by Jodeci. He starts the first verse with the lines, she said Jay made you a millionaire and looked me in the eyes, said cake, 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 got that from the pies. We made each other millions, that was my reply. But had a mill before I met him, baby that ain't no lie. See, he named some Harlem cats and the homie from the Shy, but my thing, he ain't named nobody from the sty, and I do it like Bed-Stuy, do or die. So yeah, basically Cam saying he had plenty of money before he got down with Roc-A-Fella. Fast forward to January 2015 and Dipset put out a freestyle with New York DJ Funkmaster Flex on which they rapped using the beat from the song Victory by Biggie. On Cam's verse, he makes a reference to Beyonce, who by this point was Jay's wife, with the line, having money, that don't make you a real one. You stepped on the court, you gonna play my game. Just take shorty advice and say my name. Say My Name is the 1999 hit single by the group Destiny's Child, which once again makes as a reference to Beyonce like he did on You Gotta Love It. So yeah, it seems like even a decade after their feud started, they still had some tension. The beef between these two was officially squashed in the public when in April 2019, Jay-Z held his second B-Sides concert in New York City, and he had Cam'ron come on stage and they performed the song Welcome to New York from Cam'ron's album Come Home With Me.
The B-side concert. Shout out to OG Warren. Warren called me up. Shout out to Jim Jones too. Jim the one when he was signed to Roc Nation. I don't know if he still is, saying Jay wants you to come out at the concert. So I'm like, bet, man, this is years later. I ain't got no problem with that. Me and Jay spoke on the phone. You know, he said he respected me, told him how much I respected him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I came out and I did the show. It was a marvelous show because nobody even knew that me and him was cool.
Later on in interviews, Cam would state that he received a weird text message from Jay that night after the concert.
He's like, yeah, man, see how much shit we could do when niggas start acting like it's fake beef out here? That shit slows shit down. And I'm like, what is, I didn't know how to take that. Like, I didn't know what he meant when he texted that. Like, see what happened when niggas start acting like it's fake beef. And I'm like, I just replied, well, no matter what, you, Dame Biggs, gave me opportunity, feed my family legally, so I have no problem with it. But inside, I'm like, why would you even text that?
The beef was squashed between the two, but in 2024, Cam'ron has made mention of Jay-Z as part of his new career as a talk show host. In June 2024, Antonio Brown took issue with Jay-Z performing at Tom Brady's Hall of Fame induction ceremony, but not performing at any hip-hop's 50th anniversary shows. Cam'ron chimed in on his show, making a comparison between Nas and Jay-Z, saying that Nas loves hip-hop and Jay-Z loves money more than hip-hop, essentially.
I'm not saying he's not a hip-hop historian. He doesn't know about hip-hop. Listen, he had won a Writers Guild Award or some type of award, and he named probably every rapper from 1978 to 2014 or 15, whenever he won the award, like every rapper in between that time. I believe that Jay-Z, to me, my personal opinion, is not in love with hip-hop. I think he likes hip-hop a lot. I think he likes money more and opportunities to take his brand to the next level, and some of the stuff that may have been going on in Hip Hop 50 may have not been up his alley.
Then a few months later in September, Cam'ron chimed in on the situation of Kendrick Lamar getting picked to perform at the Super Bowl being hosted in New Orleans, the home of Lil Wayne, who had wanted to be picked himself, saying that Lil Wayne didn't get picked because of Jay-Z, who has been involved in organizing the Super Bowl.
I love to pop up. I think he's one of the top artists of this generation, period. Hate the selection. It's in New Orleans. You don't get Lil Wayne. That's what we doing? Listen, you don't get Lil Wayne in New Orleans for the
Hot
Super
Boys.
Bowl. Not just Hot Boys, Cash Money, all the songs Lil Wayne's done, whether it's Blink 182, there's no reason why Lil Wayne should not be performing the Super Bowl. There's one person who's stopping this. I know, it's not really a secret. Lil Wayne had a problem with somebody before who's kind of part of the organization running it. This is payback. Who's Lil Wayne artist? Drake.
This is a common thing that has been said online, as the theory is that Jay blocked Wayne from being in it because they used to have issues with one another, and also Kendrick Lamar's beef of Drake, as Drake is well known for his affiliation with Lil Wayne and being signed to Young Money. On top of that, there's Nicki Minaj's beef with Megan Thee Stallion, who is known for being signed to Roc Nation for management. Either way, the beef between Cam and Jay has been squashed, but not without questions. Like, did the person who shot Cam really have some relationship with Roc-A-Fella? Did Cameron really throw shots at Jay purely for publicity like some people have claimed? What do you think about the beef between these two? My opinion on this beef is that Cameron has one of my favorite diss tracks to Jay with You Gotta Love It. If it's true about Dame not consulting Jay about wanting to make Cam the vice president of the label, that isn't cool, so I understand Jay having an issue with that. Roc-A-Fella as a label seemed pretty divided. They had people from Brooklyn, Harlem, and Philadelphia coming together for business and music. The label as a whole had a lot of success, but feuds like this caused a lot of friction and helped divide the New York rap scene as a whole. Just like Jay was beefing with Nas, Prodigy, and even Joe Budden, it seems like he's not the type that is okay with sharing the spotlight. Not to mention, selling the label to Def Jam once again took business out of the hands of us and into the hands of outsiders of the culture, as Dane would probably say.
What exactly is a culture vulture, and why is Leor one?
Clear my throat on that one. Pause. A culture vulture is someone that exploits the culture that he's not a part of, doesn't benefit the culture, and takes care of his culture, and has no respect for the culture he's exploiting. And that's exactly why Leor is one, because he's been making money off of our culture. He is not part of it, and he's been exploiting it, never helping, teaching, or anything, doing what's in the best interest of his pocket over the culture. And to add insult to injury, he is not accepted in his own culture. He cannot get no money in his own culture. So he comes to ours, acts like a big cat, pretends we need him when we don't. And then if someone even asks him a question, he acts entitled.
They seem like they're making it cool to be drinking lean and syrup, and
it's the most dangerous. It's the most dangerous thing that's facing our society.
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical, though. You're saying
it's opportunistic. Yeah. I got people to feed. I got a business to run.
You're gonna make Dame Dash take this clip and call you a culture vulture.
Who's Dame Dash? You brought him up. I don't even know him. Why
the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
Like always, remember to click the subscribe button to subscribe to the channel, click the thumbs up button to like the video, and check out the links in the description below to follow on other platforms and become a channel member or patron to support the channel further and unlock certain perks.